Alright team, here is my predicted All Black squad for this weekend's test against France. Now this one's a tough call. Last week's performances raised a few eyebrows. We saw some weaknesses exposed, particularly in those aerial battles out wide and in the midfield's ability to generate front foot ball. So that's forced a few questions here heading into this week. So starting at loose head, I have got Ethan the Groot. You know, he's had a quiet season by his standards. Both in Super Rugby and last week's test, but make no mistake, he is still one of the best scrummagers in the world. You know, he plays his role like a traditional prop, low profile, high work rate. While he's not as dynamic as someone like Alan Alator or Ollie Norris, he's rock solid, reliable, and that's what counts. So Okra, I've gone for Codie Taylor. You know, Father Time is undefeated, but Codie is putting up one hell of a fight. Aside from a quiet final, he had one of the best Super Rugby seasons in years and looked sharp against France. Razor knows what he's getting, you know, leadership, consistency, and a hooker who's excellent on both sides of the ball. I think he's close to a guaranteed pick. Now, tight head prop, I've got Fletcher Newell. For me, Newell might be the most nailed-on selection in this entire pack. He's a rare breed, a prop who not only lasts 80 minutes at test level, but seems to improve as the game wears on. You know, he was strong last week, and with durability like this, he brings serious value if injuries do hit. So I'm back in the same front row. They held their own in the scrums, and I expect them to dominate this weekend. The only real question mark is around the Groot. Can he hold off the rising talents behind him? So at lock, I've gone for Fabian Holland and Tupou Vaa'i. Fabian had a strong debut. He got from mountain of work, and his height gives us the kind of presence Razor clearly values. With Whitelock and Retallick gone, we need that big traditional lock again, and Holland fits the mould to a T. Now, Tupou Vaa'i slots in with Scott Barrett out injured. Coming off a great season with the Chiefs, Tupou offers athleticism, intelligence, and huge versatility. We even saw him cover 6 last week, so he's becoming one of the most complete forwards in that squad. So taking Tupou out of 6, this is where things get interesting. My back row, I've got Sema Penifina at 6, Du'Plessis Kirifi at 7, and Ardie Savea back at 8. So just as I've seen, Razor loves having 3 genuine line-out options, and Finau gives us size, he gives us presence there. So I'll be honest, there are others who have most definitely outperformed him this year, especially in that 6 jersey. And he can go missing in games and times, you know, he can do a big hit, but then his work rate sort of slows down and we don't really see that same presence as someone like Ethan Blackadder. You know, but when he is on, he is destructive, so let's hope for that sort of performance come Saturday. You know, shifting Ardie to 8 gives us kind of the best of both worlds. We get his explosive ball carrying and link play, while freeing up that 7 jersey for Kirifi. Now, I've been quite impressed with Christian Leawilli, especially for the past 3 years. Even at NPC, he's been phenomenal. But you know, Ardie can do all that plus more. So, and yeah, it frees up that 7 jersey for Kirifi. So we really lack that breakdown pressure and turnover threats last week. You know, Kirifi brings energy, but a niggle as well as a traditional 7 and a real ability to slow down that opposition ball, which could be crucial against that French tempo as we saw. Now, halfback, I've got Cam Roigard, no surprise, probably my player of the match last Saturday. He picks his moments perfectly, his support lines are world class, and he brings a physical edge we don't often see in 9s. You know, he's built like DuPont, a lot larger, so not the same player as an Aaron Smith or a Perenara. So yeah, let's see how he goes on Saturday. I'm sure it'll be another world-class performance. Now 10, I'm sticking with Beauden Barrett. He's had a solid game, you know, considering the injury to Severis that forced a change in the game plan almost instantly. His kicking was accurate, his distribution great as always, and he's always a threat with ball in hand, so he really pulls that defense in, which creates us more options. No DMac starting for me. You know, for me, he's the ultimate super sub. You know, there is no bigger threat in the 60th minute when the teams are tired and there's more gaps open up to bring DMac on. So yeah, I've got him on the bench. Now midfield, I've gone for a bit of a controversial choice here. To be honest, this is sort of what I see happening. So I have gone for Jordie Barrett and Rieko. So Jordie is undroppable. He can distribute, he's physical, kicks well. You know, he's probably the best 12 in the world right now. And his return to New Zealand soil was strong last week after a stint in Ireland. And yeah, Rieko, look, I'd prefer him on the wing. I thought he actually had probably the most impactful performance he's had in a couple of years out on the wing last week. But for me, Proctor really struggled against that French rush defence, which all the European teams seem to employ. And for me, Rieko was the best option this week with ALB out. He's played some strong games at centre. He's consistent, at least with what he does. And when the forwards create space, he's a genuine game breaker. He just needs that space. So hopefully he gets that with the strong forward pack that we have picked for this coming Saturday. Now for me, the outside backs, I've gone for Caleb Clarke and Moni Narawa and Will Jordan. Last week, it's fair to say we were outclassed aerially. We surrendered far too much territory and ball through there. Clarke and Narawa are strong in those contests and bring power and flair. And Jordan picks himself really. And there's question marks around Clarke. He didn't score. He didn't score a try all the Super Rugby season, but the Blues forward heavy structure limited his chances. And Narawa's been a standout for a long, long time. And his kicking game gives us another point of difference. So for my bench, I'll quickly rattle that off. I have gone for Samisoni Takiaho, explosive ball carrier, menace at the breakdown. I've gone for Ollie Norris at 17, who's been phenomenal all season for the Chiefs. And I've gone for Tyrell Lomax as well, who is a strong bit of experience and really brings on a physical game when it comes to those scrum contests. At 19, I've gone for Big Paddy. He's reliable, experienced, physical, and I actually thought he had a phenomenal season with the Blues despite a really slow start to the season for them. At 20, I've got Luke Jacobson. As I talked about, Razor loves these huge, tall, physical players. He covers 6, 7, 8, great utility, great motor, great engine, and just a great hand to have on the bench. At 21, I have got Cortez Ratama. He has been, again, excellent all season. I really thought he was knocking on the door for that All Blacks jersey this season, even coming off the bench for Xavier Rowe. But again, Roigard is in a level of his own, so really handy to have him on the bench. At 22, I have got Quinta Paya, who is by and large the most physical player we have, apart from probably Tupou Vaa'i, who has not made the squad this week, but he's great to have on the bench. It's great to see him return to the All Black jersey and really switch coming back from that injury. I think he's got a more dynamic game. We see him kick more, we see him distribute more, so it's really handy to see his progression and development as a player. And no surprise, I've gone for Damien McKenzie at 23. As I said, the ultimate bench player, someone you undoubtedly have to pick every week, so great to have him on. We did get to see a few more minutes of him with that injury to Sevu, but I'd like to see him come on as the game's slowing down, as there's more space, and see what he can do as he sees what's going on from the bench and give his sort of creativity and perspective when he comes on. So that's my 23 for Saturday. Let me know what you'd change, who's in, who's out, and what you think Razor's likely to do. It's a big test, big selection calls, and some big question marks around last week, so let's hope we get it right.